They thought I was just the quiet wife who'd disappear with a settlement check. What they didn't know, while my husband was busy playing house with his little girlfriend, I was quietly building my own chess game. And honey, checkmate was about to be served ice cold. Y'all, grab your tea and get comfortable, because this story is about to show you what happens when people underestimate the wrong woman. If you're ready to see how real power moves are made, hit that like button and let's dive in. Trust me, you don't want to miss a single detail of this masterpiece. My name is Serena Thompson, and 3 years ago, I was living what everyone thought was the perfect life. Married to Robert Thompson, tech billionaire, living in a penthouse that could house a small village, flying private jets like they were Ubers. From the outside, we had everything. But let me tell you something about perfect lives. They're usually perfect lies. I had given up everything for this man, my consulting career, my independence, my identity. I became the supportive wife, the woman behind the successful man, the one who smiled pretty at charity galas, while he got all the credit. I had an MBA from Stanford, top of my class, worked at McKinsey for 3 years before I met Robert. But somewhere along the way, I convinced myself that his success was our success, that supporting his dreams was enough. Growing up, my father always told me, "Serena, you got a mind like a steel trap and the heart of a lion. Don't let nobody dim your light." My daddy was a brilliant engineer who held 17 patents in data processing technology. He built his own small tech company from nothing, and I watched him turn ideas into empire. That's where I learned business wasn't just about money. It was about vision, strategy, and never backing down from a fight. Robert's tech company, Thomson Industries, was worth $2 billion when we met. We had been married for 8 years, and I genuinely believed we were building something together. I organized his calendar, networked at events, even helped him strategize business deals. I was his partner in every sense of the word, or so I thought. What I didn't realize was that I wasn't just supporting his business. I was the secret sauce that made it successful. Every major contract Robert landed came through my connections. The Stanford alumni network I had carefully cultivated, the relationships I had built during my McKinsey days, even the social circles I moved in as his wife. I introduced him to investors at charity galas, connected him with potential clients at dinner parties, and smoothed over corporate disputes with my diplomatic skills. Robert was the face of the company, but I was the brain behind the strategy. But you know what they say about assumptions. They make an ass out of you and me. Well, in this case, they just made an ass out of me. It was a Tuesday night in March when my world crumbled and rebuilt itself all at once. Robert was in the shower and his phone kept buzzing on the nightstand. Usually, I wouldn't touch it. I respected his privacy, trusted him completely, but the notifications wouldn't stop. I thought it might be an emergency, maybe something wrong with his mother, so I glanced at the screen. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, baby. The penthouse will be ours soon." The message was from someone named Brittany. My heart dropped into my stomach, but my mind went into overdrive. You know that feeling when everything suddenly makes sense? All those late nights, business trips that seemed unnecessary, phone calls he took in the other room. I scrolled up, and there it was, months of messages, pictures, plans, promises. This wasn't just an affair, this was a whole relationship. A whole life he was building with someone else. Brittany Collins, 24 years old, Instagram influencer with 2 million followers, model, fitness guru, everything I used to be before I became Mrs. Thompson. Blonde hair, blue eyes, tiny waist, everything society tells us men want. The messages revealed everything. How he was planning to divorce me, how they laughed about me being clueless, how he promised her the penthouse, the lifestyle, everything that was supposed to be ours. The worst part? They had been together for 8 months. 8 months of lies. 8 months of me planning anniversary dinners while he was planning my replacement. 8 months of me believing in our marriage while he was destroying it. When Robert came out of the shower, I was sitting on the bed with his phone in my hand. The steam was still rising from his skin, and for a moment, he looked like the man I fell in love with 9 years ago. Then he saw his phone, and his face changed. He didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. He looked annoyed, like I had interrupted something important. "Serena, we need to talk," he said, reaching for his phone like nothing had happened. "Oh, now we need to talk." I handed him the phone, my voice eerily calm. "Seems like you've been doing plenty of talking with Brittany." What happened next showed me exactly who I had been married to all these years. No apology, no explanation, no remorse. Just cold calculation. Robert sat down on the edge of the bed, not even bothering to get dressed, and looked at me like I was a business problem he needed to solve. "I want a divorce," he said, like he was ordering coffee. "My lawyers will contact you tomorrow. You'll be taken care of. Don't worry." Taken care of. Like I was a problem to be solved. Not a wife who had given him 8 years of her life. Not the woman who had organized his life, supported his dreams, and sacrificed her own ambitions for his success. "Taken care of," I repeated, still in that unnaturally calm voice, "like how you've been taking care of Brittany." "Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Serena. We've grown apart. You know that. Brittany and I, we have something real. Something real. 8 months versus 8 years, and he called her relationship real. That's when something inside me broke, but not in the way you might think. It didn't break me down, it broke me open. All the anger, all the hurt, all the disappointment crystallized into something else entirely. Pure, focused determination. The papers came the next day, delivered by a courier while I was having my morning coffee. $50 million. To most people, that would seem like a fortune, but I knew Robert's worth. I knew our worth. 50 million was what he spent on art in a good year. It was insulting, but I signed them anyway, right there in front of the courier. My hands were steady, my signature was perfect, and my mind was already 3 moves ahead. Everyone thought I had lost my mind. My friends, my family, my lawyer. They all said I should fight for more. My sister called me crying, begging me to reconsider. My mother flew in from Atlanta, convinced I was having some kind of breakdown. But here's what they didn't understand. I wasn't interested in taking half of what Robert had built. I was interested in building something bigger. See, while everyone was focused on the divorce drama, I was doing something else entirely. I was remembering who I was before I became Mrs. Thompson. I was remembering that I had a brain, connections, and skills that had nothing to do with my husband. I was remembering my father's words, "You got a mind like a steel trap and the heart of a lion." The first thing I did was hire my own team. Not just any divorce lawyer. I hired Patricia Williams, the best forensic accountant in the city, and Thomas Chen, a corporate lawyer who specialized in intellectual property. I told them I wasn't interested in a bigger settlement. I was interested in the truth. "What kind of truth?" Patricia asked during our first meeting. "The kind that shows exactly what I contributed to Thompson Industries," I said, "because I have a feeling it's a lot more than anyone realizes." What we discovered changed everything. Thompson Industries wasn't just Robert's company. It was built on my family's foundation. My father had developed 3 key patents in data processing back in the 90s, patents that became the backbone of cloud computing architecture. When Robert and I got married, those patents became marital property, and Robert had been using them as the core technology for his biggest contracts. Not only that, but 70% of his major clients had come through connections I had made at Stanford or through my previous consulting work. The business plan for his most successful product launch? I had written it during our second year of marriage, staying up until 3 in the morning to perfect the market analysis. The networking strategy that landed him his biggest investor. That was my design, based on relationship maps I had created. The corporate culture that made his company attractive to top talent. I had consulted on every aspect of it, from the office design to the employee benefits package. But it went deeper than that. Robert's company had three major breakthrough innovations that had made him billions. The first was a data compression algorithm that my father had developed and I had helped refine during graduate school. The second was a client relationship management system that I had designed based on my McKinsey experience. The third was a predictive analytics platform that came from research I had done for my MBA thesis. I wasn't just Robert's wife, I was his uncredited business partner, and I had the documentation to prove it. Emails, drafts, patents, even recorded conversations, where Robert admitted that my ideas had been crucial to the company's success. Meanwhile, Robert and Brittany were living their best life. She moved into our penthouse, the one I had decorated, the one where I had hosted dinner parties for Robert's business associates, the one where we had planned to raise children together. She wore my jewelry, drove my car, even used my gym membership. She posted everything on Instagram. Blessed, grateful, love wins, new chapter. The media ate it up. Poor Brittany, the young woman who had stolen the heart of a powerful man. The narrative was that she was some kind of fairy tale princess, rescued from obscurity by a billionaire prince. And me? I was painted as the bitter ex-wife who couldn't let go, the older woman who couldn't compete with young love. But while they were playing house, I was building an empire. I started Thompson Consulting. Yes, I kept the name, which drove Robert absolutely insane. Using my own network, the one I had built before and during my marriage, I began recruiting top talent. Not just from Robert's company, but from across the industry. I reached out to former McKinsey colleagues, Stanford classmates, even people I had met at those charity galas I used to attend as Robert's arm candy. I offered them something Robert never did: respect, equity, and a chance to build something meaningful. My first hire was Angela Porter, a brilliant systems architect who had been overlooked for promotion at Robert's company 3 times because she was a Black woman in tech. My second hire was Miguel Santos, a product manager who had been frustrated by Robert's old-school leadership style. By the end of my first month, I had 10 employees. By the end of my third month, I had 25. Within 6 months, I had 30 employees and had taken on 15 major clients. Within a year, I had 50 employees and had taken on 30 clients, 3 of whom dropped Robert's company to work with mine. My team was faster, more innovative, and we actually cared about our clients' success, not just their money. The difference was in the culture I created. At Robert's company, everything was top-down, hierarchical, focused on quarterly profits. At my company, we were collaborative, innovative, focused on long-term relationships. We didn't just solve problems, we prevented them. We didn't just deliver services, we delivered solutions. Robert started noticing when his quarterly reports began showing declining revenue. First, he blamed the market. Then, he blamed his employees. Finally, he called me, furious, accusing me of stealing his clients. "You can't just poach my clients, Serena," he said, his voice tight with anger. I laughed, actually laughed. "Robert," I said, "you can't steal what was never really yours." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means those clients came to you through me in the first place. And now they're coming to me because they want better service. That's not stealing. That's competition." That's when I made my first major move. I went public with Thompson Consulting. The IPO was oversubscribed by 400%. We raised $200 million in our first week on the market. The business world finally got to see what I was capable of when I wasn't standing in someone else's shadow. The financial press went crazy. Forbes wrote a cover story titled "The Hidden Genius Behind Thompson Industries." Harvard Business Review published a case study about my rapid growth strategy. I was invited to speak at conferences, appear on financial television shows, even guest lecture at business schools. But I was just getting started. While Robert was dealing with his declining business, I was making strategic acquisitions, small tech companies that complemented our services, patent portfolios that strengthened our intellectual property. I even bought the building that housed Robert's offices and became his landlord. The irony was delicious, but it was also strategic. Real estate in that area was undervalued, and I knew the city had plans for major development. Brittany started posting less frequently on social media. The pictures of their lavish lifestyle became fewer and farther between. Robert was stressed, working longer hours, trying to figure out why his empire was crumbling. He started drinking more, sleeping less, snapping at employees. Their relationship began to suffer under the pressure. I heard through the grapevine that they were fighting. About money, about the future, about me. Apparently, Brittany had expected to be living in luxury forever, and the reality of Robert's declining fortune wasn't matching her Instagram fantasies. Then came the legal battle that would change everything. My lawyers filed suit against Robert for unauthorized use of my family's patents. We weren't asking for damages. We were asking for ownership of every product and contract that had been built using those patents, which, as it turned out, was about 60% of his company's value. The case was ironclad. Robert's lawyers tried everything, claiming the patents were marital property, arguing that I had given implied consent, even suggesting that the patents weren't essential to the technology. But we had documentation, emails, and witness testimony that proved not only had Robert used my family's intellectual property without proper licensing, but he had actively hidden the fact that the technology belonged to my family. The depositions were brutal. Robert sat across from me in that conference room, his lawyer whispering in his ear, while my team systematically dismantled 8 years of his business claims. We had emails where he admitted using my father's algorithms. We had recorded calls where he told investors that his wife's family connections had been crucial to the company's development. We had documents in his own handwriting acknowledging that my strategic input had shaped major business decisions. The judge ruled in our favor. Robert had 30 days to either properly license the patents or cease using the technology entirely. The licensing fee, fair market value, determined by an independent assessor, payable immediately. That's when Robert's world really started falling apart. The licensing fee was $800 million. Robert didn't have that kind of liquid cash, which meant he had two options: sell parts of his company or take out massive loans that would cripple his business. He chose the loans, but the banks wanted collateral. Guess what the collateral was? His stock in Thomson Industries. While Robert was scrambling to save his company, I was making my final move. I had been quietly buying stock in Thomson Industries for 18 months, using various investment vehicles and partnerships, shell companies, family trusts, even international holding companies. By the time Robert realized what was happening, I owned 22% of his company. Combined with two other major shareholders who had grown frustrated with Robert's leadership, shareholders I had cultivated relationships with over the past year, we had enough votes to call for a change in leadership. The board meeting was on a Thursday in November. I walked into that conference room wearing the red power suit I had bought for our first anniversary, the one Robert had said made me look too powerful for a charity luncheon. I sat down at the table, not as Robert's ex-wife, but as the largest individual shareholder in Thomson Industries. Robert's face, when he saw me, was priceless. Pure shock, followed by understanding, followed by something that looked almost like respect. Almost. The vote wasn't even close. 8-2 in favor of removing Robert as CEO and installing me as interim chief executive officer. The board's reasoning was simple. Under my leadership, Thomson Consulting had outperformed Thomson Industries in every metric: growth, profitability, employee satisfaction, client retention. The shareholders wanted someone who could actually run a company, not just own one. That's when Brittany finally showed her true colors. Within a week of Robert losing his position, she was gone. No goodbye post, No explanation to her followers, just disappeared back to whatever life she had before Robert. Her last Instagram post was a cryptic quote about knowing your worth with a picture of her boarding a plane. Turned out love wasn't so strong when the bank account got thin. Robert tried to fight the decision, hiring expensive lawyers, threatening litigation, even trying to rally employees against me. But the board's decision was final, and the employees quickly realized that their jobs were safer with me than with him. I had a track record of success, a vision for the future, and most importantly, I actually understood the technology that made the company valuable. The merger happened 6 months later. Thomson Industries and Thomson Consulting became Thomson Global, a company worth $4.2 billion. I was no longer Robert's ex-wife, or even Robert's business partner. I was Robert's boss. I offered him a position, actually, senior consultant, good salary, full benefits. He turned it down, said he'd rather start over than work for me. His pride was more important than his livelihood, which tells you everything you need to know about why his empire fell in the first place. The media narrative changed completely. Suddenly, I wasn't the bitter ex-wife. I was the brilliant businesswoman who had been overlooked, the hidden genius behind a successful empire, the woman who turned betrayal into building blocks. Forbes put me on their cover with the headline, "The Real Thompson." Harvard Business School wrote a case study about the merger. I was invited to speak at conferences around the world about strategic thinking and corporate leadership. But the most satisfying moment came 2 years later, when Brittany, she wanted to grab coffee, said she missed our friendship. We had never been friends, but apparently, she was rewriting history now that I was successful, and Robert was struggling to get his consulting firm off the ground. I never responded to her message, not because I was angry, I was past that, but because some chapters in your life are meant to stay closed. See, here's what I learned through all of this. Revenge is temporary, but building something lasting is forever. I could have spent my energy trying to hurt Robert, trying to destroy what he had built. Instead, I spent my energy building something better. I turned my pain into purpose, my anger into action, and my betrayal into the foundation for something bigger than anything Robert and I had ever dreamed of together. Thomson Global now employs over 3,000 people. We've created jobs, innovation, and opportunities. We support small businesses, mentor young entrepreneurs, and invest in technology that actually makes people's lives better. Robert's company was about making money. My company is about making a difference. We've developed apps that help small farmers optimize their crops. We've created platforms that connect students in underserved communities with educational resources. We've built systems that help hospitals manage patient care more efficiently. Every quarter, we donate 10% of our profits to organizations that support women in tech and minority entrepreneurs. And that, to me, is the real victory. Not that I took Robert's empire, but that I built something better in its place. Not that his girlfriend left him, but that I learned to value myself enough to never accept less than I deserve again. My father would be proud, that steel trap mind and lion heart he talked about. They served me well, and every day when I walk into my office as CEO of Thomson Global, I remember his words, and I remember who I am. Not somebody's wife, not somebody's ex-wife, but Serena Thompson, businesswoman, leader, empire builder. And that, my beautiful people, is how you turn betrayal into empire building. Serena didn't just get revenge, she got justice and built something incredible. If this story inspired you to never underestimate your own power, smash that subscribe button and tell me in the comments, what would your power move be? And don't forget to share this with someone who needs to remember their own worth. Until next time, keep building your own empire.